Understanding social dynamics and finding the right girlfriend or wife will also help you with family relationships and with your friends. Even though you are already somebody who's really kind and caring, you probably struggle with setting boundaries when it comes to your parents or other friends. You may be too much of a pleaser. You may enter what my uncle used to call a foul compromise, where somebody asks you for something and you don't really want to do it because it goes against your values. You just don't want to do it, but you do it anyway because you're afraid that you will lose their love. The problem with entering a foul compromise, doing something you don't want to do, is both people will pay for it in the long term. Marshall Rosenberg, founder of nonviolent communication, he explained this many years ago. He says, if in a relationship, can be in an intimate relationship, man and woman, man and man, you with a family member, if one person does something to please the other person, even though you really don't want to do it, both people will end up paying for it because you'll end up harboring resentment. And it'll mess with your charisma. It'll mess with your aura. It'll mess with your self-esteem. Self-esteem, self-confidence, being able to trust yourself also comes down to you standing up for yourself. And it helps to think of what Jordan Peterson said, which is conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. If you don't have a little bit of conflict now, you'll have a ton more many years down the line. A classical example, I know you're a full-grown adult now, but if kids do something to please their parents, they don't marry a certain person, they pursue a certain type of job, they don't do a certain hobby, they will end up hurting the relationship with their parents because they'll end up hating their parents. So whenever you're setting a boundary with somebody, and there's one or two people that are coming to mind right now that you're thinking about, then it's actually not you against them, but it's an investment in the relationship. I'll share a very personal example of mine. When I was 16 years of age, my parents went through a divorce. My parents are amazing people. They're both amazing role models in a lot of ways, not necessarily in the area of dating and relationships, because their relationship wasn't great, but in a lot of ways. But when they got a divorce, my dad and my brother and my mother and I, we were living an hour outside of Berlin in Germany, and my dad was working in Berlin, and then my mom decided to move to the south. And there was sort of an unconscious assumption that, or an unquestioned assumption rather, that I would move down to Bavaria with my mom so she could start a new life. And she would always say, over the course of 6 months or a year while they were figuring things out with the house, etc., Mom would always say, yeah, and then when we go down to near Munich, it wasn't Munich, it's like a little bit further south, beautiful area, lake, mountains, actually amazing. She still works there as a nurse there now. And she'd go, yeah, when we move there, then XYZ. And I would always say, yeah, okay, cool. And I would feel an unbelievable amount of stress within me because I was so terrified of saying no to my mother. And it took 6 months to a year of me visiting my uncle, who's not actually my real uncle. It's my father's best friend, my godfather, a man who I'm so grateful for, who's helped me so much in my life. He would constantly say, David, you're not saying no to your mom. First of all, she doesn't have to move there. She could stay in Berlin. I completely understand that she moved to the south, by the way, for her to rebuild a new life, because we were originally from the west of Germany. She's not from Berlin. Pardon me. We're not from Berlin originally. She's from the west. So I completely understand that she wanted to move there, but he said, well, that's her choice. You're not saying no to her. You're saying yes to yourself. But I was so afraid because I didn't want to lose her love. I didn't want to hurt her. And eventually, when I had the conversation with her, which took 6 months or a year because of the pressure that I felt, it was a very emotional moment. We cried, and then it was fine. And then we cried one more time when actually the moment of the goodbye came when I was like 16, 17, or 18, and she moved down. But my mom and I, we have a beautiful relationship to this day. I have an unbelievable relationship with both my father and my mother. I'm incredibly blessed. And that's not because of me. It's just because they are amazing people. I'm just very fortunate, okay? But if I had done something, as in moved there and given up my life, because at the time when I was 16, I was properly training martial arts. I had some friends there an hour outside of Berlin. I didn't really want to go to Bavaria. Do I want to Bavaria? As a teenager, you don't necessarily care about nature. If I had done that, I would have started harboring resentment within her. So what I now do in my job when it comes to helping men finding the right girlfriend or wife is a lot of different things. And one of them is setting boundaries, understanding when the lady you're talking to may need reassurance. When is it a red flag? Is it a disqualifier? Maybe you made a mistake because you didn't communicate properly via text. And I've worked with men and continue to work with men who are extremely high achievers who are doing very, very well in different areas in their life. For example, they all suck at texting, right? And so navigating those communication aspects, because if you can communicate authentically and effectively, and you learn to set boundaries, and you stop entering foul compromises, and you stop being a pleaser, and you still want to make people feel good, add value, add more value than you take in a relationship, but you stop being a pleaser, then you're not only being good to yourself, and you're contributing to your own charisma and karma and or charisma and aura or self-confidence, but you're actually also helping that relationship. Because if there's a family member of yours right now that has an unspoken expectation of you, that you just continue to give in, give in, give in, you start to hate that person. So my invitation for you is stop doing things you don't want to do. Start saying what you actually truly believe. And this one little concept goes so much deeper than you can actually imagine. You think you're being honest with women on dates. You're not. You're fake. You don't even realize how fake you are. But David, I'm actually being pretty honest. You don't even know what true, radical, unfilteredness, unapologeticness, unashamedness. Fernanda's filming this right now. She'd always say, "What do you say, babe?" I'm like, I'm have no shame or something. Yeah, I have no shame because I'm being very silly, fun, and playful, but not in an uncalibrated way, not in a negative way, not in a me trying to have some ego moment, in a fun, silly, playful way. You've never even seen what that truly looks like. That's why you've never been able to create and sustain real attraction with a woman who's right for you. Now, that's part of it. You also don't know how to get enough quality dates because you've never used dating apps properly. You haven't started approaching properly. You don't have a funnel. You don't have a date machine that continuously supplies you with an abundance of quality leads. You can go on at least one quality date every single week to choose the right woman from. But part of it is also standing up for yourself and understand every time you set a boundary, you're investing in that relationship. And it's funny, Jonathan, who's a coach in my program, one of my best friends in the whole world, he's from Ecuador. He's been doing dating coaching for 12 years. He was doing it back in the day in Ecuador. Absolute legend. I have a client in London, Kazim. He always says that Jonathan's hugs, they cure cancer. And this guy's amazing. Me and him, we'd have a joke because one time he told me how he was dating a girl and she'd do something and he'd write her an Instagram message and he would go boundary and then 1, 2, 3. So it's like a running gag of ours, like boundary, pop, 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 1, 2, 3. And then Fernanda and I, we don't really have a lot of conflicts, but the very few times we've had, I then every once in a while started saying, okay, boundary. And then Fernanda goes to me, David, you know, you don't actually have to use the word boundary when you're setting a boundary. It's a little bit obnoxious. She wouldn't call it obnoxious, but it was kind of implied. But setting a gentle boundary in a loving yet firm way makes her respect you. It's impossible for you to be truly respected by your family members and by your friends and by the woman or women in your life, the women temporarily, and then the woman you choose, if you're not standing up for yourself. And it's funny because it sounds silly, but it keeps your value in their eyes high. Let me prove it to you. Even if you're a really kind and well-intentioned person and you're really trying to treat everybody equally, staff members and people of real high status, you don't care. You're really trying to treat people really well. You're making an effort. I would bet there are some people in your life, business people, family members, women, men, anybody, some people where you know, oh, I better not mess it up with them. With those guys, I can't afford to fuck it up because they may have set a boundary with you in the past, or just by the way they conduct themselves, you know, I better not fuck around. Otherwise, I'll fuck around and I'll find out. And there's other people where, oh, I'll be okay if I'll be like 15 minutes late. It's fine. Now, we're all late every once in a while. Life happens. Traffic happens. That's not what I'm talking about. But you know that there's some people where you really, really want to make sure you're on time. Why is that? Well, because they've set a boundary with you in the past, or because of the way they communicate, you know that a boundary will come and you may risk the entire relationship if you act in a disrespectful manner towards them and you don't respect the most precious, the most valuable resource they have, which is time. And here's the thing, even if that may cause a little bit of tension and a little bit of conflict, you actually respect them more. You still want them in your life. Isn't that interesting? It's not always about pleasing. Here's the messed up thing. Women will reward you for certain things in the beginning that they're going to punish you for in the long term. For example, always agreeing with her. She will be very pleased with that and she'll reward you by being happy. Responding to every message with a big block of text, great. And always being in a rather non-confrontational, non-challenging manner, super quick. Well, in the beginning, she might think of that as nice, but she'll very quickly then lose respect for you and she's going to punish you for it. For example, what happens sometimes is men, when they get in a relationship with a woman in the initial dating stages, they're out there, you're doing your job, you're doing your business, you have your hobbies, you're living life. You're the guy. Then when you get into the relationship 6 months in, a year and a half in, you get a little comfortable, you stop spending time with quality male friends, you start pushing the business forward, you stop working on yourself. And just like the frog in the boiling water, even though that's exactly what she wanted in the beginning, or at least that's what she said she wanted, you spending all of your time with her and making her your life's focus, she then starts despising you. She gets a little upset with you. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you're with somebody that you're actually compatible with, Fernanda and I, in our relationship, the more time we spend, the better it is. If we're apart for a month because she may be visiting her family in Brazil, that's not so good for us. So if you're actually compatible with somebody, then the more time you spend, the better it gets. Yes, at the same time, she still needs to see that you're the guy. This betaization, it's what the silly little term for it is. When you take an alpha male, stupid little term, don't get hung up on it, the guy, and she turns him into a little beta who makes his entire life about her. You don't want that. She doesn't want that. Yes, she wants you to be fully present with her. She wants quality time, but she needs to see that you have a life outside of her. She needs to see that you're setting boundaries. The people in your life who actually truly respect you, you have set boundaries with in the past. And understand that setting boundaries and refusing to enter any sort of foul compromise whatsoever is actually an investment in the relationship. And here's another reason why it actually isn't selfish. It unconsciously gives them permission to do the same. By you setting a boundary, they then now are encouraged to do the same. I do the same thing with Fernanda. I say, well, tell me if something isn't cool. Fernanda and I have quarterly check-ins, half-yearly check-ins. We're like, how am I treating you, babe? Is there something I can be doing better? Now, in the beginning, you need delusional levels of self-confidence. I wasn't doing that on the third date. It was like, how was the first date? How was the performance? Efficient? Want to give me a 360-degree performance review? No. You need to be almost delusionally self-confident, while kind, well calibrated. But when you're actually in a relationship, you want to be able to reflect on your own insufficiencies and not just be the one who sets the boundaries because everybody else is a narcissist. Everybody's an NPD, BPD, weird attachment styles, and you're so perfect. No, you want to reflect on your shortcomings as well. But the men who typically come to me, they are already very kind, caring men. They are already calibrated. They got a great job, great business. They're doing good. But you're either not getting enough quality options with the women you're actually interested in, or you have blind spots in your communication. And what I just gave you, not entering a foul compromise, is one out of 150 small blind spots. It's one and another and another. And it's not about changing you. But what it really is Michelangelo seeing the David and the marble and then just carving away what doesn't belong. It's just removing the blind spots from your communication. It's just taking away what stops you from being the most authentic and effective version of yourself. So, if you're a man who's crushing it, you're doing well in your career or your business, you're kind, you're caring, and all you want is the right woman to share life with, click the link below and apply for a free initial consultation.